Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. And I will start by reading the land acknowledgement. This building sits on the traditional homelands of the 4 bands of the Spokane Tribe of Indians. Upper band, middle band, lower band, and Chippewa band. Since time immemorial, the Spokane Tribe of Indians has lived and cared for these grounds, identifying themselves as flesh of the earth. They pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Show gratitude for the land, to the land, river, and peoples who have been fishing, hunting, harvesting, and gathering here for generations. May we learn from one another's stories so that we may nurture the relationship of Spokane, the people of the Spokane Tribe. Share this land. All right. So we have a sign-up sheet for visitors who are here at the room. It's in the back table. If you'd like to sign in and sign up if you have any public comment you want to share. And are there any proposed agenda changes? Right, we'll consider the agenda adopted. So the first agenda item is approval of the March 2022 board minutes.
I move we approve the board minutes. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the March 2022 bills and contributions.
I move we approve the March 2022 bills and contributions in the amount of $2,406,543.78.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. And now we have the financial report. Nicole?
Yes, hi, thank you very much. I'm actually a little soft-spoken, so if I'm too quiet, just yell at me. I will go ahead and present the operations portion, and then Penny will take over with the bond portion once I'm done. So for the cash and investments trend for the March 2022 operations, we did close March with cash and investments for 140 days of operating costs. And for our expenditure trend, our operations March expenditures totaled $833,105. Of that amount, total personnel costs were $537,572. We did pay for our annual integrated library system software, which is called Folio. That amount was $75,000. Our books and materials costs were $56,977. Our utilities totaled $16,617, and our interfund charges were $33,706. And for the office news updates, the city has made progress with our new fixed asset software. They have uploaded most of the 2021 assets, and they're wrapping up that year. We provided the city with 2021 data, their comprehensive annual financial report. That includes things like how many visitors we had, how many items were checked out, how many branches we maintained. It's a small amount of data that we provided each year for that. Finally, the business office team, we are moving into the central branch in mid-May, so we're planned for the 16th of May. We did join Andrew for a walkthrough of the new facility in March, and we're really, really excited for our new home. It's just a fantastic tour. We had a lot of fun with it. So I would like to open for any questions before I open with Penny, or I let Penny proceed with bond update.
Nicole? All right, thank you, Nicole. Thanks. Penny?
Oh, thank you. Well, the month of March, it was full of a lot of furniture fun, I can tell you. We are still getting deliveries at Liberty, Shadle, and a little bit at the Hive, but Central, as you can imagine, has been very busy. That's been with deliveries, receiving, installation, and the resulting invoices. So the furniture is a $6 million budget. We're about 2/3 committed and or paid. We ran into a few quality issues. For example, some of the bottom shelves on the metal shelves weren't connecting properly. We had some sharp edges on some custom casework. 2 different vendors who reacted very quickly and has made a remedy of those things. March also brought Meridian Construction. They provided us with all the required insurance, bonds, and other documents in accordance with the contract. The building permits were issued for both Indian Trail and South Hill. And they actually submitted a small invoice for both those locations for March. So we're moving right along with them. Shadle exterior artwork is coming soon. We had delayed that installation to work out the Parks Department land use agreement. And now we have Bacon Concrete who will do that installation for us. Jasmine Brown, the artist from the West Side, will be on site, as will Karen Mobley from Spokane Arts Fund, and of course our own Eva Silverstone. So we look for that to be done within the next 30 days. Now that we've been open at the branches for a little while, we have new discoveries occurring on a regular basis. For example, blinds that were missed in the design and installation. So we now sweep back through and get those purchased. Some AV equipment, audio-visual equipment. So really happy that we have some remaining budgets to take care of those items. And not on my sheet, but noteworthy, in March 2021, Tara brought forward a request to accept E-rate reimbursement, which is the USAC program for libraries and schools. And it took a long time, but we got $240,000 in for reimbursement, and that will replenish the technology budgets for Tara within the bond. So and there were no contracts executed under the special authority. So with that, I'm open for questions.
Questions for Penny?
Question, Penny, I'm not recalling this reimbursement program. Can you explain a little bit more what that was?
I can. That is a program that's made available only to schools and libraries. It's the amount of reimbursement is based upon the poverty rates, school meal reduction rates in the areas that you serve. And there's two programs. One does reimbursement for internet connectivity, and the other one is for capital. And this was awarded to us on the capital side of that program. This does come into the operations on the internet connectivity as well, but this one was large and was bond related.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
All right, now we have the bond construction project update. Matt?
Hi,
Hi, Matt.
it's good to see everybody here.
Yeah.
Bond update. Okay, let's see. Shadle is almost done. And Penny's asking the board for approval for project completion today, so that's great. Liberty and Hive chug along. We're still waiting for some materials to come in and be installed. We're in the closeout phase with them as well. It's going well, slowly but surely. And then the big news is downtown with Central. We got a certificate of temporary occupancy on Friday with Walker Construction did, so they can. That means the owner can actually move in now at this point. And, Corey's already kind of made his home there. Other departments will be following. And Lincoln Street's open now, which has been closed for so long. It's hard to remember which direction the traffic should flow. I had a bet with my wife last night, and I lost the bet. I came in the office this morning, looked at it, oh, I picked the wrong direction. So Walker Construction is doing well. A lot of punch list items. There's still lots to do, but as Penny said, lots of furniture moving in. It's coming together. In South Hill and Indian Trail, their slabs are all cut up, putting in conduits, ripping out walls, ceilings, getting ready to frame new walls. So we're moving right along. So any questions for me on construction projects?
How big is the photovoltaic system that we have on the?
How many? It's about, I can give you the area approximately. 75 feet by 50 feet on the roof. Just give a little slideshow to Karis and Penny on Friday that showed me, but I don't have my slides.
Oh, that's cool. That's all.
It's really low to the ground, so you kind of think you'd be up high, but it's basically on the roof itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Any other questions for Matt?
I have a question, probably more for Andrew. Are we gonna get a walkthrough scheduled?
Yes. Yes, definitely. So anytime,
I asked that question too. So what about us?
yeah, Mary wrote me a note. Yeah, anytime I'll reach out and if we can get a couple times, we'll do its work. It's really impressive. I think that the art installation is this weekend, so let's wait until after that. Because I think that that's gonna really, put that icing on the cake. That's gonna be really special. Because that's what comes down from the third floor.
Through the
Cutout.
through the middle?
So, and I haven't seen that yet either, so it'll be special. So we can get a couple dates on the calendar over the next couple weeks.
Is the children's area all installed there?
Yes,
yet?
it is. There's a slide there. Oh. I walk on the beam, there's like a walking beam that I tested it out today, as part of the punch list to make sure that it worked properly.
There's videos that we will not destroy.
I only got once.
Very thorough, very thorough. All right, excellent. Anything else, Matt? No? All right, thank you, Matt. All right, the next agenda item is the chairman's report, and there is no chairman's report, so I will turn over to Andrew for the.
Thank you, Laura. Director has submitted a written report. I'll go over some of the highlights. The Friends of the Library held their first book sale in over 2 years, in the first week of April. Really eager crowd. They raised just about $5,000, which is fantastic. They put in a lot of effort, as well as our facilities crew and the Shadle staff, in order to make that happen. Communications did a great job in promoting the sale as well. And the Library Foundation during that same week was Library Giving Day. And with the work of Skylar, this would not have happened. But they held a successful fundraising campaign, nearly $10,000, which is almost double what they've raised in the past. Looking at other library systems in the state, a lot of them did not see that increase. King County saw a 10% decrease in fundraising. A lot of them saw a 50% decrease. So people I think they're liking what they're seeing, and they want to stretch that dollar even more with their donations. So that was awesome to see. I know the Friends were really excited to hold that sale and clear out a couple storage rooms that they have been renting over the past couple of years. As the mask mandate has lifted and we're offering our in-person programming, we're also being very persistent in having a bigger presence at the branches from our administrative team. We've been kind of in hiding over the past couple of years as a safety protocol, but we're holding more in-person meetings at the branches, and it has been awesome to see the public use. Last week was a return of in-person programming. It was great to see some of those story times happening, the excited families and kids. It's just, it's just a reminder of why we've done a lot of these things, and to see that appreciation from the public has been fantastic. As far as our DEI work goes, Tara Ramos led a first of a 4-part series on racial equity principles for staff. We actually held it in this room here last week. And it was a real good opportunity for us to share connections and develop our core principles of racial equity. And that work is so different to do in person than it is over Zoom or online platforms. So I think that those that participated in it got a lot out of it, and we're looking forward to continuing on with that work. Speaking of Skylar, she also was the winner of our Star Spotlight for March, not for the work that she did for the Library Giving Day campaign, because when Skylar does something, she really puts in a huge effort. She led a book discussion for staff on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And she also is the wizard behind the light programming, the central marquee sign. So really stepping up and making sure, I think Karis had said, making sure that the public isn't blinded by the lights because they can get quite bright, but also, adding that fun element that we have at the central facility, that extra pop that we'll have on the corner of Lincoln, which goes south, and Maine. So thank you again, Skylar. We also are in the process of onboarding new staff. So we've hired our youth arts specialist. We stole from Lisa Culleton from Spark Central. So that was a great hire for us. Also, Dana Bronson will be joining us in May as our new local history specialist. She was at Whitman College as their associate archivist. And we also had a new team member join our facilities team. Matthew started in April and bringing lots of great knowledge to the facilities team as well. And as Matt had mentioned, we did receive that certificate of occupancy for Central, so that move is starting. It's really great to see that. We're still on track to open in early July. Use a pencil when you write this down, because who the heck knows what happens, but July 11th is that opening ceremony day that we're hoping for. So barring any other significant delays, mark that in the calendar. Any questions for me?
Not really a question, just to add a little bit more about the Friends of the Library book sale. We've always had it at the downtown library, down Central. But I think they're moving there. They had such a great time at Shadle, and who knew? People that are buying giant boxes of books want to have parking near next to them. And the people loved it. So I think they may keep doing Shadle. Why not?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Was it the same time as the craft fair, the Shape for Craft Fair, same weekend?
It was the first week in April, Thursday through Saturday. And they didn't even do their normal Wednesday night thing. So it was a shortened schedule, and they did just as robust
One fewer day.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was that, but there was a lot of stuff going on at Shadle, and that's the other thing is there's all this traffic at Shadle. People that don't even know there's a book sale and just stumble into it. At Central, I think pretty much you had to know about it to go there. I mean, it wasn't as much foot traffic, so they may keep that up.
Yeah, they had a lot of positive things to say, especially about staff. And
Staff was fantastic.
and the two rooms, sort of that separation that they can do between the adult and the kids, with the two meeting rooms. So it was a good experience. I think.
All right, any other questions for Andrew? Thank you. All right, now we have the council liaison report. Jonathan?
Perfect. All right. Well, I apologize. If you hear my son in the background, we also have Encanto going, so hopefully that's not too distracting. But yeah, so this month in council, some of the bigger items where we approved some money for some ARPA dollars for police vehicles. So 25 hybrid vehicles. We also gave them funding for 10 electric vehicles. Last night, the big issue was the potential zoning change that could have allowed for temporarily for residents in heavy industrial areas so that we could potentially put some shelters in some industrial areas. We recently made it to where people could comment on consent items, which is something that hadn't happened in the past, since we made a rules change to allow people to comment on consent items, because sometimes in consent items, we're dealing with, some issues that are up to a few, millions of dollars. And so it just made sense to allow people to give public comments. on that. And I think those were the big issues in the last month.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions for Jonathan? All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, and now we have the communication report.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see everyone in person. You'll see in my report that I talked about the foundation and friends. You've already heard about it, but I do want to reiterate Skylar's work on that. You know, if it wasn't for Skylar, the foundation wouldn't have raised $10,000. She got up at 4 a.m. to go live on television to talk about that. And then she also did a live radio interview on Friday about the friends and the friend sale and the foundation. So kudos to Skylar. And of course, that all happened on a week when I was out of town and Alina was out. So Skylar really, we're so grateful for Skylar always. But this month's theme is garden resources. So if you've gotten a newsletter yet or looked at the website, it's everything gardening, all about our gardening tools, our seed library. Got a number of really great gardening and kind of earth-centered programs, like Build an Insect is the STEM program right now for kids. So a lot of fun things there. Alina developed or has updated our website, our gardening resources page on our website to include a bunch of great videos that Jin made last year. A lot of information about our gardening resources, gardening book lists, and we've also created a trifold that's all about our gardening, a print piece all about our garden resources as well. We've been, as far as internal communication, we've been starting to meet with our branch locations and meeting in person, taking an opportunity to see people in person again, and reviewing the brand message guide. If you remember, the brand message guide we launched last year in the fall, all about what really is behind our brand, what drives us as employees to contribute to the community. So we launched that last year, but we never really had a chance to talk with branches about it. So we're doing kind of a rotation right now, talking to branches about brand message guide. We're beginning our work with the Wood Shop. That's the agency we worked with last year. We're working with them again this year, and we're beginning to formulate our campaign for the opening of Central. We'll also be putting some dollars behind promoting summer reading this year as well in some digital ads. And in Page and Point, we are refreshing our welcome campaign. Alina's working on refreshing our welcome campaign. That's the campaign that gets triggered when you sign up for a library card. You get an email that day that kind of outlines the ins and outs of your card. We're calling it Card Holder 101. And then you get another email a few days later about other things we offer, and a third email several days after that about signing up for your digital offerings. And so with the brand refresh we did last year, those kind of needed some attention. Plus, we had suspended them during the pandemic because we couldn't exactly market like come into the library and do these things. So we had to really kind of just focus on the digital. So refreshing those. And another cool thing we're doing with Page and Point is, so Alina and Skylar last month talked about our recommendations, our new recommended reads. We're actually figuring out a way to combine or add recommends to our notices. So, and they'll be specially tied to what you are checking out. So if you have a hold notice for a gardening book on the theme of gardening, you'll get some recommended reads about gardening that you might like. So it's just another integration of marketing our collection in our regular touch points. And then this isn't in the report, but it reminded me, the talk of Central, we're moving into Central next week. We're one of the first groups to get to move in. So we're pretty excited about that on Wednesday. In social media, one thing I wanted to point out is our top posts on Instagram were all quotes this month, which is kind of interesting. Usually they're book faces. They were all quotes, and they were all in appreciation of Women's History Month. So I was curious. And nothing too notable to point out in the YouTube views. But you can also see in our Patron Point statistics. The newsletter about Library Giving Day had a 29.5% open rate, which is one of our highest open rates on newsletters. So kind of ties into our success in that campaign as well. And that's about it. Any questions for you, for me?
Questions for Amanda?
All right.
just want to point out that Skylar got all the accolades for being tech savvy and the lights.
Yeah.
Sure that.
All right, so now moving on to new business. We have the capital bond fund final acceptance for Shadle Park. Penny?
Okay, thank you. This is really a milestone. It's a first for us. All of our renovation and construction contracts, excuse me, contain a whole laundry list of administrative requirements that the contractor has to comply with. I've actually got a list of those on the second page for you. But what happens once those are done, we bring a request to the governing body to formally accept the project as complete. This does a couple things. We get to release the payment to the contractor for their last invoice. And we also notify the Department of Revenue, Employment Security Department, and L&I that we're ready to close the project. Once we get a release from those three agencies, we can release retainage. So our one of the requirements is that all of the subcontractors have to file their affidavits, and they have to be approved by Labor and Industries. 54 subs have filed. Only one remains unapproved, and we expect that to be approved literally any day. So our request is for the board to accept the project effective with the date that last affidavit is approved. And we can move towards closure of the project and pay Garco.
So I have a question. Does
Okay.
the approving the final acceptance, does that hinder us at all in having to apply money later because we discovered that some blinds weren't?
Nope. No, this is a natural process. The affidavits, I put a little inset on the lower part of the agenda item. So I can go look at the portal every day, and that's an example of All-Star Glass. And when a sub starts the job, they file an intent to pay prevailing wages. Then during the project, they upload certified payrolls. And then when they're done, they file their affidavit. And all of the subs have done that. We have confirmation that the last sub is just waiting for Labor and Industries to approve. They're short on staff because of COVID and training issues, so everything's running slower. We could hold this to next month, but when I wrote this agenda item, I had 5 that were waiting. Yesterday I had 2, and now we have 1. So I literally think it'll get approved. It may be approved by tomorrow morning. There's no risk because retainage is how that's why you need the 3 release letters from those state agencies. They do their due diligence and then send us a letter that say we can release retainage. In the case of Garco, they bought a retainage bond. So all we do is release the bond.
So this is essentially closing out our relationship with Garco.
Yes, it is. It doesn't affect our warranty. This is the natural process of closing a public works job.
Any other questions?
I guess this is a question for the lawyers on the report. Can you do a conditional final acceptance? Is that okay?
Yeah, and particularly because it's an objective determination of what, the last gating item, it'll be clear. Well, it's happening. There won't be any question as to whether or not I don't have any discomfort with the conditional approval.
And if I could add that we would not, the next step would be the moment that I see the approved date next to that one last affidavit, it's for advanced cabinets. Then what will happen is I can go ahead and process the $26,000 that we still owe Garco. And then I file a notice of completion by way of the portal. And that actually, what happens is in that notice of completion, I fill out the total project cost, how much was paid in sales tax, how much was held in retainage, in this case, 0, because we have a retainage bond. So I submit details on the bond, the number and the carrier. And then I send that off and it triggers Department of Revenue. They'll actually send a report to GARCO. Their figures have to agree with mine. Then Department of Revenue sends a release letter. Then secondly, Employment Security Department makes sure that everybody's accounts are in good standing. Then they send me a letter. And lastly, Labor and Industries, they're the holder of all of this information. They send me a release letter. Only after I get all 3 of those does that actually really officially close the project and the retainage bond is released. So the bottom line is there's no risk to the library, that it's being a good partner with GARCO to not hold them over till the next meeting because of one affidavit that's slow to, L&I is slow to approve.
Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion?
I move we grant final acceptance of the Project Shadle project to be effective on the date L&I approves. The last, it says 2, but 1, the last
One,
date affidavit.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. All right, thank you, Penny.
thank you.
Our next one is review of the 2022 employee engagement survey results. Alan?
Well, once again, great to see you. And welcome to Hilliard. In your packet, you've got a review of the results, and I just want to go over a few fun facts and draw your attention to a couple of things. First off, the survey was conducted in March. That's typically what we do every March. We did miss March of 2021. A couple of things got in the way, so we decided that wasn't a year to the survey, but we have been surveying basically the same survey since 2015. We had 76 out of our 91 staff participate in the survey. It's a little over 83%. It's pretty normal for the kind of participation that we typically see. I mentioned we've been doing it since 2015, and so for 5 consecutive surveys, we had improved our results every year. So for basically every year we've ever done the survey, we improved. As a matter of fact, the last survey in 2020, we improved in every category that we surveyed. Well, that streak's over. This last survey, we anticipated the results may not be as strong. We obviously we built a few buildings, we remodeled a few buildings.
Hopefully me.
We we moved staff around a lot. There's just a number of items, including a worldwide pandemic, that got in the way of us being as engaged as we wanted to as leadership with our staff, as well as supporting them in the fashion that we would have hoped. From my perspective, actually, the numbers didn't slip as much as I anticipated. We went back about 2 years worth. So there's certainly room for improvement, but we've achieved higher and we know the path to get there. So we feel pretty confident in having the ability to do that. To lessen the blow of that news, I included just a little bit of national information just to say how we compare the library as other U.S. employers. And we compare favorably. We have 49% of our staff are what we would call actively engaged. And those are staff who would respond very positively. They strongly agree to statements that we provide to them. And nationally, that is about 34%. And we can get these national figures because we use the Gallup research and survey, which is used, thousands and thousands of employers across the United States. I included also in your package just some of the results, and I typically have emailed the entire survey along with comments out to board members, so I can certainly do that if that's what you'd like to do again this year. I started, of course, with the largest decline, and the figures that you have in front of you, the percentages are individuals in our staff that say they either strongly agreed or they agreed. So it's either a strong yes or just a simple yes. And we still achieved 80% in each of those areas. But if you look back at our past years, that takes us almost back down to 2018 in each of those areas. So while, hey, 80%, that's great. Not as great as we have been. Improvements, we did improve in some areas, especially we achieved 100% of people either agreeing or strongly agreeing with the phrase or with the statement, coworkers in my group are committed to doing quality work. We hang our hat on that. I mean, that's a very strong statement, staff to staff, that they really believe in what their fellow staff members are doing. And we've achieved 100% of our staff saying that now for 2 years in a row. I want to talk a lot about that and not so much about everything else. Actively engaged, I pointed that out. So again, that is people, percentage of our staff strongly agree with these statements. And research has shown if you can achieve 60% or greater, then you've developed a very strong culture. And we're trying to achieve a culture of high development. We're trying to achieve the ability for all our staff to feel as if we're very involved in their development and we really care about them as they move forward. And being able to achieve into the 60th percentile for each one of these, we feel really good about. We wish it were more, and it has been more in the past. So again, we know we can get there. Some focus for improvement there at the end. These are all areas that speak to developing our individual staff members. So receiving feedback on your development, giving opportunities for impact on decisions that impact their work, and opportunities to learn and grow. Again, still in the 80%, it's great, but not as strong as, last survey was all 96% across the board. So obviously some room for improvement. Where do we go from here? We've shared all the survey results and all the comments with all of our staff and all of our leadership. And then what we typically do is in each individual branch or department, the leader takes their group through the results, and then they talk as a team as to, well, what would we like to focus on? Where do we think it would mean the most for this group to get some improvement? And then they put some action plans together and start working on that. And then it gives us the ability to follow up and do very brief surveys in those focus areas and try to get some feedback within several months. Questions I can answer for.
On this, when it says, I'm very satisfied.
5:15 activity bus has arrived. The activity bus has arrived.
I'm very satisfied with my manager's 66%. That's the strong yeses. Then there were also regular yeses on top of that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's a, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, 67% of our staff are saying, I really, really strongly believe that, I'm very satisfied.
It's a higher percentage of people who just agree that they are very satisfied.
Yeah, so we're trying to set this high bar and move those. Okay, thanks for saying yes, thanks for agreeing. We want you to really endorse it and feel strongly about it.
Alan, I also, when did people fill out these surveys?
In early March.
Early March.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is there's some things that, like for instance, we were having a contract.
There were some
negotiations and maybe attitudes changed once we got settled. And was this before or after?
Darn, that's a
Right,
great question.
right in the middle.
Yeah, it was right in the middle, as a matter of fact, yeah. It was right in the middle. We had not finished that yet. Okay, so thanks, Jim. You gave me one more reason to feel a little bit better.
Is there a repository of past approaches departments have each used or sites have each used? I mean, to be creative and come up with stuff is great, but also reinventing the wheel is not necessary. Whatever got us to 96% across the board could be brushed off and applied again.
Yeah. There's a history of action plans that were implemented before. Yeah, good question.
I just have a comment. We do these same surveys, and with a company that does, as this one does, financial institutions all over the country. And it was the same results. It's been a hard couple of years on everybody. And because we took it really to heart as well. Obviously, we can't blame it all on the pandemic. We need to take a look backwards and start to think about what could we have done better during that time. But the facilitator who led us through this also said the same thing. This is pretty much through the whole, all the financial institutions that do these surveys, that we have seen that decrease happen. And, there are such bright spots in here that obviously everyone still feels so strongly about their coworkers. And, to build on that, I think is, you've got that foundation there. And I think that the plan that you have for improvement is excellent. So it hurts though, doesn't it? Yeah, I know.
But we made that decision too, to release it, and we knew going in that they would be lower. We could have delayed it until things are a little bit less chaotic, but we wanted to see if people would actually be honest with us. And they certainly were.
Well, and the two lowest scores, the 281s, are things that are really concrete and really easy to fix. But like having the equipment to do your job is something that you're doing now, and working from home is a whole different ballgame than being back in the clinic. So, and then the receiving feedback on my development and progress in the last 6 months, that's something supervisors can calendar and make sure they're giving appropriate feedback. Or
Being
So-
in person will help with that.
totally, yeah. So I'm really positive with you, Alan. These are going to come right back up.
Yeah, no, as you pointed out, these are all under our control. We just need to put the effort in and
Well,
do
and,
better.
It keeps us from being complacent.
and we don't ask these questions unless we're prepared to do something with that. That's the most important thing with an employee survey. If you're going to do it, going to ask the questions, going to release the results. I think the next step is, as you were saying, action plans for improvement. So I think you're on a good path.
All right. Any other questions for Alan? All right, thank you, Alan. All right, and our next item is the self-service update with Paul.
We're going to be showing some slides here. I'm kind of trapped back there behind the cords, so I'd like to point out a few things. So go ahead and advance the slides.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Sorry.
What we're talking about is the picture of self-service when we open our new branches. We open them to self-service hours, which I was going to show you here. What we found is the bigger picture is that it's interesting, the very folks that dealt with self-service the most are line staff. They, on the survey of employee survey, showed the least amount of stress. They certainly had stress when we opened our branches, when we opened the new buildings, because there are a lot of things that we put to people that were a change for the public. But it's interesting how they report their statistics it's the lowest of the whole public service group, the lowest level of stress, but you can tell that they had it. And so we'll go over it. I'm just going to go over a couple things. If we need to move the slides so you can see them, we're going to be looking at some stats.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we go ahead and put it into presentation board?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Paul Chapin. I am in charge of operations and public service. That means the operation of the branches. I'm Jason's counterpart. He works on programming and our community engagement. My job is to create a platform to operate all of our branches. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. Good. Good. So first of all, what I'd like to point out is the operating hours. The whole idea of our, basically our service, expanding service, was to create an increase in hours, basically 25% increase in access of the public to our buildings. So that special, on the image on the right was created by our marketing. They show in the the dark area, that's full service hours. Self-service hours are in the red. So now all of our libraries that are new, that are open 7 days a week, 4 evenings a week, and 1 hour earlier. Now, this is also created, it's a lot easier to communicate between branches. People come into one branch, they have a consistent opening hour kind of platform. For this kind of analysis, though, we're only looking at Shale Park, Liberty Park, and Hilliard, because they're the ones that are doing self-service right now. Other branches will be coming into that, but STA, for example, does not operate with self-service. It was just not possible there in that environment. Go ahead to the next slide. Good. Now, quick review of service levels. Self-service meant everything that was available except reference and readers advisory and circulation support and IT support, computer support. The staffing service points were unstaffed. Basically, they were empty. And public services staff did close and open the branches normally, but they were behind the scenes in our first kind of iteration. Full service means everything's available just like the normal library that we do. Thank you. I'm sorry we lose the top banner there, but this is a look at by hour, the amount of hours that were in self-service. So if you simply look at 9, 10, 11, 12, those are the hours of the day using military time. But in the golden bars are when we operate self-service. That's about 12% of our time is in self-service, the opening branches for these branches, the opening hours for these branches.
What do the numbers represent?
Let's go back to gate count.
Is it gate count?
Gate count.
Gate count, sorry. It's not on there, but gate count, that's the number of people coming through into the library. And that's for 3 branches too, Shadle, Hilliard, Liberty Park. Now, interesting look, Tara was able to supply me with a lot of data. Circulation transactions, just a fancy word for people using our self-checkouts, checking out, checking in. And the time of day, you can see this graph, basically the golden is the Shadle, Liberty Park is the blue, and green is Hilliard. And those golden bars, basically the light yellow bars, show you when we're actually doing self-service. Those are the hours that we're in self-service. The real abundance of our work is in the middle part of the day. We'll show you that another one. Go ahead. Now, the interesting thing is, very important point to realize is people are self-sufficient during self-service hours. About 12% of the time is spent in self-service, but we found that 30% of all of our transactions were happening in that time. 70% was during full service hours, but it was a really amazing difference. People are self-sufficient. They're coming in and they're actually using our services. But we want to talk a little bit about the details. So go ahead to the next one. Wi-Fi usage. It's almost exactly the same amount as gate count. 13% of the Wi-Fi usage happens in the golden bars, that basically the self-service time. Each one of those is a Wi-Fi access, and amazing statistics. Thank you, Tara, for putting that together for us. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Now, let's talk about customer feedback, because if you were working in a branch, there was abundant feedback in the first couple of weeks. And of course, the line staff, our public service staff, they really heard from people. One of the first people was Andrew. Didn't you staff the first day with part of our admin teams? For 2 weeks or so, we all did different shifts as greeters. And what was the first thing you were doing back of house then?
Oh, cards.
Yeah.
Cards.
Library cards. And so we found that I analyzed, working with our team, actually Angela Richardson looked through, we need to go back.
It wasn't sharing the screen.
Oh,
So I just wanted to see.
No problem.
Get that.
Angela Richardson looked at every single complaint from November 1, and we counted them. We found there were only 3 written comments about self-service. But anybody who works with a staff, that was, Lisa, you're here, you work at Shale, people gave plenty of feedback, and a lot of it was positive. I mean, a lot of it was negative, but there were also positive, like, oh, this is cool, I can be here, it's great. But we really boiled it down after the operations staff have worked for the next 5 months. We've got a lot of experience with this. And the key issues right now are library cards and pins, pin numbers, wayfinding and collection signage. People were not happy about not being able to find parts of the branch. That has really improved. Every week we've got something new. Computer and printer use as well. But there was a learning curve that we're going to be looking at for Central's opening as well. The timing of how people train and how our staff trained to actually open the branch. We'll go to the next slide. Now, it's kind of hard to read, but I just wanted to show you the learning curve. This is all done by Angela Richardson. In fact, I got my little pointer here real quick. Every one of these green points is a emailed customer service complaint. 176 of them. And this over here, just to show you, this is the quantity. These are the dates, all the way starting November 1. And these red arrows are simply key dates that we should remember. First red arrow is Shadle opening up. Second red arrow is Liberty Park opening up. And the last red arrow is when we turned on Folio and basically had an entirely new system of interfacing with the library. Now, these green complaints, they taper off. The customers get trained. They actually learn the system. And this is kind of interesting. Toward the end, we actually have very few complaints. I don't know why that's not showing up, but toward the end, we're at very few per day. This is complaints about accounts. Basically, I can't work my account with the system. So this whole idea, we're seeing that there's a learning curve for our own staff and the folks coming into the branch as well. Go to the next one. So the conclusion for us is self-service is evolving. Based on feedback, we want to really look at how we can change and shape. And what we're going to be doing from now on is to assign one staff member on each floor. Mentioning each floor because at Central, we're going to have numerous points for customer service. So there'll be an info guide with the backup staff behind the scenes if it's necessary. And we'll integrate security guards as well, which is already happening at Shadle with customer service. But we're going to limit that assistance during self-service to library cards, PIN numbers, and printers and computer needs, because that's the biggest issue for those. So that's our conclusion.
So the problem with the library cards is that people want a library card and there's nobody that can give them one.
Right. We had an influx of brand new customers coming in. Also, people were just coming back into the library after a number of months. And so it was difficult for folks.
Yeah, one of the things too is it led us to, especially having someone like me that's never on the floor and having, been there for that first sort of couple days, kind of realizing how many blocks we have on accounts that don't need to be there. Like, why are we stopping a transaction from happening? Like,
With people who had blocks, they were trying to check something out, it blocked them.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody to tell them why.
So it allowed us to clean up that system too, which I think led to a decrease in complaints and barriers as well.
Any other questions?
Well, on the wayfinding issue, I mean, didn't we spend a lot of money on a company that was supposed to do wayfinding signage?
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is that we didn't have end caps yet, as far as those getting manufactured and put into the facilities. So right now,
We don't have
this yet. We have them now. We're just waiting on the actual signage to come in. So it's a step process where we were limited in what we could actually do. But Amanda's team is on it. We know that those improvements are coming, and it's going to be a much better experience moving forward.
Well, it's almost sounding to me like, and I'm just curious if this sounds true to you as well, that if we had been in our old facilities, but we were implementing self-service hours, but people already knew the library, that perhaps would have been a lot smoother. This happens to be new facilities and self-service for the first time happening together.
And there were a lot of variables over the December, January, February. So And I have to admit, our staff, the line staff, the people who face folks every day, really did the job. It's very hard to explain all these changes
Yeah.
first couple of weeks. But after a while, you can go out to a branch and it's fairly calm. But it's not easy. They work very hard.
On the conclusion, or the solution, I just want to make sure I understand it. We are going to have somebody, we're not just going to have backup staff house. We're also
No, we'll
going to
have one person assigned to a floor as basically a greeter and help us in case people already, they have questions that we can easily solve. We're not going to be going into really deep assistance on reference work or those kinds of things. The two branches that we're talking here, Liberty Park and Hilliard, they already do this because their volumes are much slower. It's not as many people on the floor that come in. They help. At Shadle, it's a big, busy environment, so we have to adapt and make sure that we have people available.
well, still, just to clarify, so at the beginning, we had only backup house people.
Right.
Now, are we adding another person or just taking one of those people?
Just reassigning people from back of house duties back out to at least be available for folks. That we've actually learned a lot of techniques behind the scenes with our automatic materials handling and things that we can really streamline and reorient when we have people doing certain tasks during the day. We also plan to, every time we have a security guard present, they're helping very well too. Shadle is very helpful. A guide to folks as well. So.
Well, can a security guard get somebody a library card?
No, that's why we're adding.
No. Okay.
They normally they would go back of house, get somebody to come out and help.
I see.
But we want to streamline that and make it more available to people in the library cards. Library cards too are, it's very confusing for people who are brand new coming into the library. We have a lot of folks that are just getting a library card too.
Which is great.
Yeah.
We like that problem. Yeah.
So,
All right,
thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul. All right. Our next agenda item is the election of officers.
All right. Per the bylaws, we elect new officers, or as in the case that we've been doing, we re-elect the current officers for a second one-year term. That's the situation we are currently in, where Laura is the chair and Casey is the vice chair. So if we were to follow suit, it would be an action to re-elect Laura chair and Casey to.
So moved.
You let me finish.
Any further discussion? All right, I need a second.
Oh, I said.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none. Motion passes.
Thank you for willingly serve as the chair.
All right, and now we have the SPLF, Spokane Public Library Foundation liaison. Andrew Schneider. Andrew.
So this one, as part of the trustee bylaws, we are required to have a liaison to SPLF. That's the Spokane Public Library Foundation. You probably want to help. We have not had it. I think Casey had stepped down, some kids or something. And
I know.
yeah. And the foundation itself has been going through a lot of transition. They currently do not have a director to help that group along. So there's going to be a lot of transition, I think, for that organization in the future. And I think it's going to be really key for us to have a connection to help them through that process. So we are looking for one person to serve as that liaison. They've been typically meeting, not so much over the pandemic, but in general, it would be about 3 to 4 months. guide them into this next phase. The first meeting is going to be, I believe, the first week in May. However, that doesn't exclude you from serving as a liaison. And if Nathan were here, he would say, I think I've served on the board for 6 years. Much like Jim does right now with the Friends.
I'm happy to pick it back up. I dropped it last.
So moved.
I second that.
All right, well, it's been moved and seconded. So all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right.
Opposed? None, motion passes. Thank you. All right, and now our next agenda item is the Finance Committee.
And this one, similar to other years, we are looking for 2 trustees to serve as on the Finance Committee. This group will make a full recommendation to the full board around the 2023 budget. Typically, we'll do a couple meetings in Q2, possibly another one in Q3, just depends on how the city's budget process is going. And they would make that recommendation in time for either the August, September library board.
I'll volunteer for that. It's my jam.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on the Finance Committee.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, any additional agenda items or changes to add at this point? Okay. And do we have any public comment? Nobody signed it yet. Okay, thank you. Nobody signed it here in the room. Nothing online. All right. Well, excellent. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, May 17th at the Shadle Park Library. And we are not having an executive session. So with that, I will call the meeting.
If we could just
Yes.
confirm, we will be moving the June meeting from the 21st to the 14th.
June 14th.
Yes, June 14th.
Okay.
When is the meeting?
17th, May 17th.
Okay.
All right. And then the June meeting will be June 14th.
And that's at Shadle. No, that's May.
May
at Shadle.
is at
May
Shadle.
I think June's at the or the Hive. It's one of them. We'll let you know.
More to come on the
One
location
of
for
these.
June. All right. Anything else? Any other comments for the good of the order?
Cheers, Natalie Hildebrand. I just wanted to make sure on action item 12F. I thought we were asking for 2 members. We got 1. Did you need a call for 2?
It's both of us.
Okay,
They both said yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I guess I wasn't clear on that, so thank you for the finance committee. We heard Mary.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
heard that was
Yeah.
seconded and
I'm
approved.
loud. She's not.
Sorry.
Right, I'm sorry.
You're
I wasn't
welcome.
loud enough. I said, I'll volunteer as well. And then we voted after I had said that. So
Thank
You can rest assured I want both.
No, that's fine. I just
I would
wanted to
not
get
let
out of
that
here. We
slip.
only had 1 name, so thank you, ladies.
you bet. You bet. All right. Anything else? Okay. With that,
There you go.
we're adjourned.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't even get your job.